It took a double dare, for Pete and Jim to get Manny and Kyle to camp overnight with them in the middle of the old graveyard. Pete was 14 and had made the dare. Jim was 13. Manny and Kyle, who were both 10, took the dare and were scared before they'd even finished hiking into the place. Spending the night in a graveyard was spooky enough, but this was the cemetery above the old ghost town of Bodine, Arizona. Every kid in that part of the country had heard the weird tales about what had happened there 100 years ago. She cut him up into little pieces with a long butcher knife. They were huddled around a campfire on the low, barren hillside above Bodine, surrounded on all sides by craggy canyon cliffs that looked ready to fall in on them. The sun was long gone. The moon was just coming up. The moment was right for the retelling and stretching of Bodine's scary legends. Kyle and Manny sat motionless and wide-eyed as Pete leaned forward and spoke in hushed, secretive tones across the campfire. The next night, she came back, and this time she wanted the sheriff. He woke up, and there she was, standing in his bedroom. She still had the knife. Manny moaned in fear, and nobody knows what happened to the sheriff that night. All they know is they found his body the next morning on Annie Murphy's grave. He was cold and dead and looked like he'd been scared to death. Kyle made a face. Did that really happen? Pete only gave a slight shrug. Not too long ago, some people camped up here and accidentally camped on Annie Murphy's grave. And the next morning, they were dead, just like the sheriff. Manny cocked his head. No way! Oh, really? I don't believe you! Pete immediately threw it to Jim. Just ask Jim. Jim nodded grimly. You know Tony Merritt? It was his uncle and aunt. Kyle and Manny bought it, and then fell silent as gruesome images played in their heads. We're not camping on Annie's grave, are we? Kyle wanted to know. They heard a far-off sound. What's that? Manny whispered. Coyotes were prowling somewhere amid the rocks and cliffs. Their yaps and howls carried on the dry desert wind like the giggly scheming of demons in the dark. Pete gave a sigh of relief. Whew. I thought it was Annie Murphy. She's been seen up here, you know. People say she's still around looking for somebody else to kill. Sometimes people can see her face in the cliffs. They say that late at night you can look up at those cliffs and see her up there, looking back at you, watching you. We're not camping on her grave, are we? Kyle asked again. Pete spoke with the utmost concern as he glanced about. Boy, I don't know. We might be. Kyle took a look over Pete's shoulder at the towering cliffs beyond and let out a muffled cry. I see her! Manny was all eyes now. Where? Kyle pointed. Right there. Right up there, in that cliff. Manny started to whimper, his hand to his mouth. I see her too. It's her. It's Annie Murphy. Pete turned around to look, glad they couldn't see the smile he was trying to hold back. If he wasn't careful, he'd burst out laughing and ruin everything. I don't see anything. His voice trailed off. Right there, Kyle insisted. Jim came close and muttered to Pete, Maybe we should tell them the truth. They're getting pretty scared. Weird, was all Pete said, staring toward the cliffs. What? Jim started to ask, but then he saw it too. Can she see us? Manny begged to know. Man, it looks just like her, Pete exclaimed. In the light of the rising moon, the cliff looked cold, dead, and chalky white, its every crack and furrow starkly defined by black, sharply edged shadows. In the center of the cliff, outlined by the shadows and highlighted by glaring moonlight, was the shape of a woman.